What's up, team? Sean from Rest to Live here, and we're doing our Week 12 update to our 100K options challenge. For those who are just jumping in, this is a one-year challenge to break 100K by selling puts and calls, but primarily puts, and seeing if we can do this as a way to generate some regular income, but also amp it up throughout the year. So our goal is to progressively keep increasing what we're earning per week. Obviously, there'll be some up and down periods, but essentially that's what we're trying to do. As always, please, this is not financial advice. I don't know your financial situation. You shouldn't be taking advice from people you don't know. But I wanted to at least put some stuff on here to show you the way I approach it, what I'm thinking about, the types and sizes of positions, what kind of premium I'm looking at, why I'm making decisions, and when. This is a particularly interesting week because it was a huge premium for a very little time period based on a strength from a TA measurement that I use that I'll explain in a second. Without further ado, I am going to share my screen and not waste any time for anybody here. Excuse me. So this was week 12. It was the 21st of March, the Monday that started this week. And I made one trade. I sold one Tesla put for $1,000. At the time that I sold this, it was trading at $1,005. And I made a $1,500 premium here. Now, I'm going to actually mark this down because I think I forgot to do this. This was not assigned. It expired worthless, so I got my $1,500. What I want to call out here was as I'm working towards amping up, and I've been able to obviously generate some additional revenue to work with over the past couple of weeks here, I want to start getting some bigger numbers going, not necessarily all the time and not necessarily with this much risk, but Tesla, once it broke 1,000 earlier in the week, I started seeing some interesting moves from a TA perspective. I play around a lot with things like exponential moving averages. I mess around with the crossover dates. So I don't always use your standard dates. And I don't have there's not a fixed model that I use to do this. But what I'm looking for is different trends that maybe other people are noticing. With Tesla, I just felt really strongly that we weren't going to be under 1,000 by the end of the week. We obviously weren't. Because of that, I got to collect the $1,500 here. Now, the flip side of this as well, although there's a lot of risk in trading one position like a Tesla, because if I get assigned, I'm going to be sitting on a boatload of stock here worth quite a bit of money. But the calls that could be sold against this also were equally juicy. So I was actually feeling okay about that as well. And then I'd put in downside protection immediately if I was assigned, just to ensure there was no serious downside risk here for myself. So long and short of it, it was a good week, one trade. But what I want to call it that's really interesting, excuse me, the week started on the 21st. If you notice, I didn't actually make this trade until Thursday. And it was actually sort of midday Thursday. And it expired the next day, the 25th, at the end of the day. So I only held this position for about a trading session and a half. And this is the way I typically try to trade these larger, riskier positions. When I'm working on puts for smaller positions, I don't mind having them for 5 or 4 days or whatever. I build that into my strategy, into the risk profile that I'm looking at. With something like a Tesla, where I'm going to be sitting on potentially, $100,000 of stock, which is going to end up needing to be leveraged because this portfolio doesn't hold that much cash. I just make sure that I have a very tight window and I don't see it moving by a certain huge amount. There's no imminent news coming out. There's nothing to be expected. That was sort of the way I was looking at this. So it worked out perfectly, worked out exactly as I sort of expected it to work out. That said, you might argue here that there was a little bit more risk than normal. I looked at this as I'm trying to generate income here, not trying to generate a trading thesis. I think that's a big thing to take away from this. The way that you might leverage options contracts in your regular portfolio is not the purpose of what we're doing here. This is literally just about showing, can we make enough money to survive on by doing this on a regular basis? So that's the way to approach this from a thought process perspective. Now, here's the other thing. I'm going to expand this out so everyone can see it if you're on a mobile device. This was the conclusion of my first quarter of trading. So the goal that I had originally set here, excuse me, was $4,325. Because of the big win here at the end, I ended up at $5,728. So in essence, I made a little bit shy of $6,000 over 3 months selling options. I netted a positive $1,403 here to what this quarterly goal was. So I was thinking about how to record this and where I wanted to sort of fit it into the overall stack here. So I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this difference and I'm actually going to apply it to the end here, sort of my last 4 weeks of the year. Because of the way it works out, obviously, 12 weeks, 12 weeks, 12 weeks, 12 weeks, or my 4 quarters, that's 48, leaves me with essentially 4 weeks left over. So I accounted for those here in their own separate sort of post Q4 category, or what we'll call really like December. The big key here is my goal would be to not have to make any trades, frankly. So the more I can subtract here, the better. So I just applied that 1403 as a credit to my final month of trading. But now here's the deal. We're going into some tougher period of time here. So although sure, we've got some 1500s, some 800s, some 900s here. As you can see, sort of the average here, right, wasn't necessarily that crazy, right? My average, as you see down here on the bottom of my screen, if you can see it, but I'll read it either way, was about $477. So in order for me to kick off next week at 650 and then getting up to about 12 by the time this time period ends, it's going to have to be more of these larger trades. I'm going to have to make sure I'm looking at the numbers. What I'm either going to have to do is more small safe trades or fewer higher risk trades with shortened time periods as well. So I'm going to need those premiums to be really good. So that's it. This was a good week. I feel good about closing out my first quarter of selling options here, very much onto the positive side. And what I want to call out too is even in the weeks where I took no action or very small amounts, I'm measuring risk. Again, I'm not running this as a full-blown technical conversation. We're not looking at all the math and the numbers. This is very heavy on discretion. I'm underpinning it by some different formulas that I use depending on what I'm looking at. But for the most part, this is looking at economic events, looking at how long till expiration, looking at leverage, looking at understanding the risk within my margin of error or deviance. Excuse me. So with that, that's where we ended up pretty much. I feel good about it. I think it was a great play. And just if you're looking at this and you're trying to learn how to do it and want to learn more about it, it's sort of very motivating to think that you're not always going to find a Tesla trade that is over the course of about, say 9-10 hours. But, if you're doing about 1,500 a week, and again, I'm not calculating taxes here, so just to, be fair in the responses below. But, if you can generate about $1,500 a month, $1,500 a week, let's just lowball and say it's 48 weeks a year, right? So you give yourself some breathing room. At $6,000 a month, that's $72K a year. That's a pretty decent full-time living. I mean, that's certainly more than enough to have taxes come out and still pay a lot of your bills and create a lot of freedom in your life. So just something to think about. You could take that at the end of the year and reinvest it back in here and try to grow that over time. And that's essentially what the goal is here. That's it. Not a ton more to talk about. I think it's been pretty straightforward. I feel good about where we are. I wasn't sure how high we would overshoot these numbers. I did purposely keep it a little bit light in Q1. And that's why I'm going to use this difference, towards the end of the year to give myself some breathing room on the bigger trades I'm going to have to make. So that's that. I always appreciate your comments on these videos. There's some really thoughtful comments that are coming through and really speaks to the fact that there are a lot of really good options traders out there. And I would really encourage you, if you feel like you have something really unique to share or just something that works for you that's maybe not unique but not thought of often, let me know. I'd love to have you come on and talk about how you approach it, how you're doing it differently. And if you track it this way and you can show it and share it, that'd be great as well. I do have all of these recorded in sort of my actual transactional brokerage. I don't show them because I don't think there's any need to prove it out. But certainly if anyone wanted to see it sitting there, I'm more than happy to do so. With that, I hope you have a good weekend. It's a Sunday. Hopefully it's a good day for you. And on to next week, we're going to start making some stuff happen. So now I'm going to be really keeping my eye towards stabilization. Where can I sort of find that sweet spot between, give or take about 800 to 1,000 in premium averaged out over the next quarter. And that's going to get me to that sort of consistent 1,200 by the end. And between what I hopefully will make in this next quarter of selling options plus the first quarter, that should be enough to help me generate the next level that I have to bounce up to. But that's it. We're trying to keep it really simple. And if you notice, I do sort of move between different types of positions. One thing I'm considering is taking intraday positions in SPY or QQQ. Those options typically trade on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or close out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I know for anyone who's watching this, that I'm a big weekly options guy. I like to keep my timelines as tight as possible, very predictable, understand the events that are happening from when I open it to when I close it. But even those intradays, if they pay well or it's an easy way to really create some buffer, I'll do that as well. It's just going to be a question of how much risk am I going to have to apply there. The only challenge, though, for those who are watching this still is if you're not using a lot of capital, sometimes those like broad-based indexes or ETFs, the premium can be really low. And it's because it represents like a lack of risk, but it may not be enough where it's even worth putting the money on the line to grab a couple bucks of extra premium. Sometimes it might be, but it's going to be sort of a moment by moment decision-making process there, because as we've seen, when markets crash, they crash really fast. And when they come back, it takes time. So I don't want to be locked into having a ton of capital in shares that I don't want to hold and then have it be way below what I can sell on calls to make a reasonable return, or at least generate some alpha on it. So anyways, with that, thanks as always for watching. Really appreciate the time. I hope you're enjoying this. If you're getting value from this, I'd really appreciate you letting me know, because what I don't want to do is keep doing this if everyone thinks it's crap or it's garbage or it's no point doing it. For some of the bigger trades, we're going to have to get a little bit more complex, probably. Still simple in an explanatory perspective, but the way I'm thinking about protecting myself, and I'll even show you where some of those events are that I keep track of, that might be useful for the next video. So until then, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think. If there's even other positions you'd like me to look at, as far as like maybe selling options on certain stocks I'm not thinking about, let me know that too. But otherwise, have a good one. Thanks for watching, and take it easy out there.